Now let's shift focus towards Africa. As the US seems to have done, Washington is trying to woo the continent with trade and investments. It has been trying to do so for a while now. Last December, the US had promised to invest $55 billion in Africa. This would be over the course of 3 years. We've just hit the one-year milestone, and the results look promising. Washington has hailed 2023 as a record year for US-Africa trade. They've signed almost 550 new trade deals worth over $14 billion. This means Washington is walking the talk for a change. But what's in it for them? This is not a humanitarian project. This is an investment, both economic and strategic.
There were some festivities and pats on the back in Washington, D.C. yesterday. A U.S. government department called Prosper Africa was celebrating its achievements. This is a 2-year-old initiative. As the name suggests, it focuses on the African continent. Its mission is simple: pump money and investments into the continent. And yesterday, the American government team showed off their hard work. They released a book, a deal book. It details everything that has taken place since last December, since Washington held a US-Africa Leaders Forum to kickstart business with the continent. Leaders from 49 African nations had gone to the US last year. And as a result, the US government was given its mandate. Here are the results. 547 deals have been closed. That's about 60% more deals closed than in the previous year. They're worth $14.2 billion. The US is calling 2023 a record year for trade with Africa. So does this mean that the US is on the way to becoming Africa's main trading partner? No, it's not even close. Here's a trade report by the African Export-Import Bank. It's from earlier this year. It looks at African trade with other regions of the world. As you can see, African trade with North America was at about 5% in both exports and imports. This is compared to over 30% for Africa-Asia trade. Africa's main trading partner is China. Beijing has spent billions over the years to corner trade in the African continent. And it's not just trade. You also have massive investments pouring in. And of course, loans and debt. China has been evasive while declaring the amount of loans it has given to the continent. But there are trackers that try and calculate that amount. As you can see, it has been substantial over the last few years. And some African nations have paid the price of debt dealings with China. Some countries like Zambia and Ghana have even defaulted on their external loans. The situation is dire, but it also opens up an opportunity for players like the US. Washington can try and make inroads into Africa, try and turn the continent away from its risky ties with Beijing, which is why it makes sense for the US to push for trade with Africa at present. Will this gambit pay off? Will Washington actually manage to supplant Beijing as Africa's trade partner of choice? It's unlikely, at least anytime soon. The gulf between the two powers is far too great in Africa at the moment. But the US will try and make the continent a battlefield nonetheless. What about the African nations themselves? Well, the continent may actually come out of this as the biggest beneficiary. If it can play the US and China against each other, Africa can walk off with great trade deals and investments. Staying neutral and getting courted by both may be the best outcome for the continent. But we'll have to wait and see if Africa actually manages to play its cards right.